Let's go over the top three reasons why you should not create a private 508c1A trust. Many people, when they initially find this, they think it's too good to be true, or, why doesn't everyone do it? But the reality is there are many valid reasons why someone, probably should not consider this path. And so I want to save many of you watching this the time and the energy, hopefully, before you even get started. So the first big one is you're the type of person that is on a mission to own things and become very self-important and continue to grow your ego within this reality. So look, ego is an interesting thing because we all have to have some kind of ego to survive, in terms of we need to have an identity, and we need to have confidence in our own abilities, and that self-confidence partly comes from this identification of self and this ego. But as you go deeper and deeper into how this reality is actually constructed, you start to realize that the real power in being able to move and flow freely through this world is in letting go of attachments and letting go of your own ego. And the Matrix, clearly pushes the opposite. It's like always this kind of drive where you feel hurt as a child inevitably because something happened to you, or just different things happen around you. And so you want to get back at the world and become more powerful and assert your power over this reality. And that's a natural feeling. I went through that myself. And, as you gain more and more power, so to speak, and you gain more and more things, you start to realize, even at the highest level, you'll see, all these super rich people and super powerful people, they'll admit that they get to that state, and then what's there? It feels very empty. And it's because that force of control will never lead to happiness. And look, most people, including many of you watching this video, probably think that's bullshit. If you're struggling to survive and money is important to you, then why not get more of it? And I'm not saying don't make money, but when you understand how money flows through this world, it's the old saying by John Rockefeller: own nothing and control everything. And so most people are still in that paradigm where they want to become millionaires, they want to become billionaires. And that's not a paradigm that fits well with trying to become private and trying to give up everything and trying to give up your ego. Going down this path is to be a ghost, is to be, someone who's pretty much unknown, and someone who may not get the recognition for their accomplishments, but that doesn't matter to them because they want to serve anyway. And so for those people who truly want to serve and truly want to give up everything to God, then okay, maybe this is the path for you. So the second reason why you probably shouldn't create one of these trusts is if you don't want to do things yourself and you really need an intermediary to help you, and you're just one of those people that's scared and you just can't do anything financial on your own, and you got to listen to your accountant, you got to listen to your lawyer, you got to listen to your spouse, or whoever the other public agents are around you, you need to look to the outside world for confirmation of who you are and how you act. And you don't have confidence in your own discernment and your own ability to create your destiny. And this may sound a little bit facetious because everyone will say and parrot, oh, they want freedom, and then they want to have, God-given rights and stand up for this and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to actually doing important financial affairs on your own, I've had thousands of conversations with people about this, and it's just amazing how terrified people are of doing something on their own without the approval, oh, what lawyer approves this? What accountant approves this? What if I show my accountant? What are they going to say? And yeah, guess what? Spoiler alert, all these people are going to hate it. Everyone around you pretty much is going to hate it. That's just the way it is. This path is psychologically extremely difficult. The actual particulars of how you do a trust, very simple. And if you want to learn more about that, you can jump in the community, which is linked below. But the psychology behind this is extremely difficult because everyone around you is going to tell you not to do it inevitably. And there will be exceptions. I've had a few handful of exceptions in my life, but I've talked to so many people, and it's just amazing how even with all these benefits stacked up, People just don't want to do it. So if you're the type of person where, you don't make a move before consulting your team, and you have this, and particularly this is the case with really wealthy people, you think that because they amassed wealth, they would understand money, they'd have certain intelligence, but it's actually the opposite. They may be intelligent in a way of like working hard for the devil and earning money, but when it comes to actually really protecting themselves in a way that they stand up on their own 2 feet, they just cannot do it. Petrified. I've spoken to people with hundreds of millions, like huge amounts of assets, and this is an easy path. They could just take it. They could start putting their stuff in. They could control it privately themselves without anyone's permission. No lawyers, no accountants, no judges, no, anyone. But they just will not do it because it's just too scary. It's too scary a thought. So most likely that's you. Most likely, you've been filing and you rely on all these other people to make a decision. And yeah, that's like, usually in life it makes sense to do that, to look around the world. People are hierarchical creatures. We need to see affirmation of others doing things in order to have confidence that that is a good path. And look, when it comes to private trust, there are other people doing this, plenty of other people. And again, in our community, you can see many of them who graciously share what they're doing, and really are open about how this path is. And yeah, there are simple, very simple aspects to it, but there are very complex and difficult psychological aspects that, we also talk about. So again, if you want to learn more about that, jump into the community. But if you're looking out in the public world, if you're trying to Google it and find what the AI says, you're all going to get information about how to stay public. So it's not going to work out too well for you if you want to go down this path, because, you could just even buy the trust, and it's a template, but there's a psychology and a frequency behind using that information. It's not just signing a document and it's like, oh, I signed a template, great, now I'm free. No, there's a lot behind it. And if you don't have the mental fortitude and willpower to actively resist all these agents that are going to undermine you, the further and further you go down that path, don't even get started. Just do not even get started. Stay where it's safe, stay where it's comfortable, listen to people around you, do what everyone else is doing. That's a better path for you. And finally, the last, important reason why I would say you should not do this trust is if you do not want to follow in the footsteps of Jesus Christ. Now, I'm going to be transparent here. Before I found this trust, I was never a religious person. I didn't even consider myself that spiritual. I thought there were aspects of this world I couldn't understand. They were very mysterious, and I did see underneath the surface, yeah, there's some kind of spirituality here, but I had no finger on the pulse of that. I really didn't give two shits about that. I was just trying to kind of be very strategic about my life and try to take care of my bases and try to live in, what I could see in front of me, and without much faith, really. But once I started pulling on the threads of this trust, and I realized that the center of the matrix is about God and standing up for God-given rights. And yes, God, in terms of the one that we look to within this matrix, is Jesus Christ. That doesn't mean that there aren't other names, because many people ask me this, well, what if there's another prophet that I worship? That's fine. Jesus Christ had Christ consciousness, and there were a number of others, Muhammad, Zoroaster, Krishna, Ganesh, and others. There were others that had that level of consciousness that also tried to teach people and help people break free from this reality. And so if you follow one of those, that's great. But when it comes to the actual documentation, the actual trust document, and the actual implementation of that, we use Jesus Christ because we're domestic in the United States, and this needs to be a strategy that's practical and that works. And banks recognize that name, other institutions recognize that name, other people at other parties we're doing business with, they recognize that name. And that is what makes this valuable as a strategic resource to actually protect ourselves, protect our money, protect our assets, protect our soul. If it weren't actually useful, what would be the point? It would just be like the same church BS where you raise your hands up in the air and you worship and you cross your fingers and you hope it all works out. That's great, and there's something to be said for prayer and for reaching up to God and asking for help. But there also needs to be tangible things that you do to help yourself. God has put tools on this earth. We have financial tools, we have tools, that are tangible as well, like how we treat our vessel. So there's many different things that God has placed around us in order for us to help ourselves. And that's part of how we're tested. We're tested to see, are we waking up? Are we creating a state of consciousness for ourselves where we see what's actually going on? So that's an important thing. And many people who find this, they're just not able to yield their ego to the fact that the name is Jesus Christ. That's just the way it is. And this document is ecclesiastical in nature. You have to submit yourself to God and follow the common law, meaning your intention is not to harm anyone by doing this. And that is the spirit of the document. If you want to do something where you're enslaving others and you're doing all kinds of weird shit out there, then great, you can do this and it probably won't protect you. This is really not for you. But if you're someone who just wants to respect others and respect their space and not harm anyone else, that is really what Jesus Christ taught. It wasn't all this church nonsense and church BS and all these frivolous things that the Old Testament has that, all these Pharisees came up with, basically. Christ said two things: love God above all else and love your brothers and sisters. And that was really the platform that he stood on, and then he went out there and ministered to people and helped people. So in that same spirit, this is a document that will allow you to do that. It will allow you to yield to the wisdom of Christ, to help, drive all your actions and all your business in a way where now, instead of that paradigm of ownership, instead of that paradigm where we're listening to others, now all we're doing is we're listening to God, and we're creating a more clear connection where we can just say, hey, God, what should I do? And then now you just go and do that. And when your mind is more clear, when you have a document like this and a strategy like this that protects you and all your business dealings and everything that you're doing in your life and protects your family, it allows you to think clear and have a closer connection to God. And that's why this trust is irrevocable. It means we don't take it back. It means our pledge and our loyalty is unwavering till the end. So that's a very important step in consciousness to make if you really want to follow God and you really want to follow Christ. And many people are scared of that. Most people I would meet are terrified of that. They're super uncomfortable. You mention the word Jesus Christ, it's like, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to do that. I would rather jump through hoops every day and follow, the government and whatever next president is making up some BS that they're making up. And then, all these hit squad agencies that can just come after you because guess what? You have a trust to begin with. It's revocable. It's your straw man. So even the education system is designed to trick us into using something that's already a really terrible trust. So you got to upgrade your trust no matter what. I mean, if you really want to get out of that system. And this is the best trust out there in terms of just not having to be under the thumb of anyone except God himself. So look, those are just the top 3 reasons I could think of. And really, most of these reasons all stem from psychology of, all this matrix programming that encourages you to, do all these things that don't really make sense. And on the surface layer, it does because everyone else is doing it. So it's like, oh, well, all these other people are doing it and they're smart, right? So I should do it too. But once you start going deeper and deeper towards the center of the rabbit hole, you realize that, it's about letting go. And once we're able to do that, then, your life becomes a lot more free. So I encourage, many of you to explore this path inside our community. You can check it out, the link below. And, for the rest of you, you probably shouldn't do this at all. So just, save yourself the trouble. Don't even join the community. Just stay a slave. It's just going to be easier for you psychologically. There's tough in other ways, but, at least you won't have to push through the boundaries like the people who do this trust, inevitably do. So wish you all the best of luck on your journey.